What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Gem Mint, and this is the new comic book day review video, and it's coming out a day late. I'm sorry about that. It just seems like there was a ton of books this week. I was reading all day yesterday. I didn't really get an early jump on it, and I've been stuck playing this Final Fantasy X like crazy. So I'm a little bit late, but I read a ton of books. I'm going to go over them as spoiler-free as possible. I do want to give a big shout-out, though, to Mastermind Studios, who sent this tee. I actually placed a pretty large order with them because I wanted some new tees for New York Comic Con, which is coming up, next weekend? And I used my own code, Mint15, to save 15%. And they threw me a couple of extra tees, including this Doom tee. The other tees I'm going to save for New York. But big shout out to Mastermind Studios. I'm going to put a link in the description if you're looking to pick up any tees from them. And again, use that code Mint15 to save 15%. We're going to start off with what I read digitally. And I'm going to start off with the indies. So the first one is The Author Immortal, issue number 1. This is a story by Frank Barberi, Morgan Beam, and Hassan Atsmain Elhau on the letters. I always pronounced his name wrong back in the day. I don't know if I got any better. So this was a surprise book for me. I didn't think I was going to like this one. I kind of flipped through it first to get an idea of what the art looked like, and it kind of felt very like Jeff Lemire. So I started reading it, and I ended up really getting into this. And you wouldn't really think so. Like if I read the synopsis, it wouldn't really go into detail. But from reading it, I'll tell you what's going on here. You've got this father who's a professor, and he wants to be a writer. He's like a part-time writer. He is not with his child's mother anymore. He's about to marry somebody that's younger, who's also his manager. And then he's got his daughter on the cover, and they have a bad relationship. She's actually trans, or she's trying to become trans, or one of those things. And then he gets an offer from an author that has been canceled, kind of like a J.K. Rowling kind of situation. And I know this sounds super like political or like controversial, but I'm telling you, it like really works in the story. So he ends up getting this offer to help this writer resurface a franchise from his favorite writer that they used to read stories to his daughter when she was a child. He used to read the stories. The mother used to read the stories. And apparently something happened with the mother. She's sick or what have you. But something about this book kind of oozes this black goo. And it ended up transporting the original author to like a faraway land, kind of like within the story kind of a thing. It's got kind of like a Something is Killing the Children vibe as well, with like this possessed book or this possessed story. Anyway, this is all over the place. I got to tell you, man, I was reading this. I couldn't put it down. I really enjoyed this issue. I'll check out issue number 2 to see where they go with this. The father, the professor, it sounds like what's going to happen is that he's going to become super famous, and he's got a ton of skeletons in his closet, whether he's being unfaithful or whatever happens. So there's a lot going on here. I really dug it. It was a surprise hit for me. Department of Truth 0 came out today. This is by James Tynion, Simmons, Snyder, Hickson, Belair, and Bidikar. But I think I read and reviewed this a couple of weeks ago. I got an early copy of it. So it's issue 0. It's kind of a new hire to the Department of Truth. Agent Cole was like the new hire that we were following around from the beginning of this story. So now he's on the outs with the Department of Truth. It's the same story, same situations. They're bringing someone new into the fold. It was okay. I actually kind of fell off a little bit with Department of Truth, just like I did with Something is Killing the Children. But I did end up reading issue 44 this week. This is also by James Tynion, but with Werther Deledra and Miguel Muerta. So 44 issues in, same creative team. So I don't think I've read Department of Truth, that one, or Something is Killing the Children. I don't think since they started the House of Slaughter. So maybe issue, I don't know, 20s or something like that. I don't know what's going on. There was not a lot of dialogue in this issue. It was mostly like art driven. But it seems like the premise here is that they're in the House of Slaughter. There are records everywhere in the library, but this person, he's not finding the records on what happened to this one person. So he finds out there are hidden archives. He's granted access, and I guess that was like a trigger to something with the higher up. So I'm a little bit behind on Something is Killing the Children. I have the first 2 hardcovers. Maybe I'll catch up with the third one and try to stay on top of it. I always enjoyed the book. So I think that's everything indies digital, but there's more. But before that, let's just go to the lonely physical copy that I have for the indie books. So Cold Slither, issue 1. What the hell is Cold Slither? All right, so this is a G.I. Joe one-shot. It's written by Tim Seeley. You got art by Juan Cabal and Rex Locus on the lettering. So I read this issue, I read Tim Seeley's afterword, and in the afterword, he says that, as a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s, you were part of a clan, and it was based on what kind of cartoons you watched and what toys. He's admitting that he was not part of the G.I. Joe clan, he was a part of the Motu clan. Same, Tim Seeley. I was never a G.I. Joe guy growing up. I was a Motu guy, then Transformers, then TMNT, and then even later, Toxic Crusaders. And if you can see where I'm going, I liked the craziest, most warped looking toys, and G.I. Joe were just regular humans. They were smaller than other characters. They did have cool vehicles, but so did Turtles, so did Motu, so I was never a G.I. Joe guy. Anyway, Cold Slither, first of all, a beautifully painted Steve Beach cover. He did a variant too that was amazing. But this Cold Slither is based off of an episode of the G.I. Joe animated series where Cobra basically hires this band to perform songs that were generated by AI with subliminal messages to make the people obedient and followers of Cobra. And in doing so, the Cobra Commander becomes the Cobra Commander-in-Chief, becomes the President of the United States. So this issue acts like a 20 years later, where are they now, Geraldo Rivera type of archetype, interviewing the band members, doing a reunion tour of sorts. Now, the thing is, this is like super meta. Like, Cold Slither is a band. The songs are real. They're on Spotify. I'm still a little bit confused on what's meta and what's and what's fiction. I don't even know if I'm using those terms right. There's a twist to the story. It's kind of a follow-up. I think if you grew up watching G.I. Joe and you love that episode, you're going to love this issue. For me, I get it, but it didn't really hit that hard because I wasn't such a fan of it growing up. All right, back to the digital because I do have some Marvel stuff. We've got New Avengers, issue 5. This one's by Humphreys, Palma, and Marquez. So we're fighting the evil Illuminati, clones of the Illuminati that were made from the Jackal. We fought the Imperious Rex, the Namor clone last time, and this one we're going after the Mr. Fantastic clone. It's kind of like the 616 opportunity to play with the Maker, but it's not. It's just an evil clone version of Reed. Pretty cool stuff. How do you take down the smartest in the in the Marvel universe, even if it's a clone of him? I kind of like the dynamic between Winter Soldier and Black Widow. Like, every time they win a fight, they sneak off and have sex, and everyone's like, Mom and Dad are talking again. But I do like this New Avengers team. This time they have a Hulk. You have this kind of weird Thunderbolts / New Avengers type of team with Eddie Brock, Carnage, with Clea, with Winter Soldier, Namor, Black Widow. I've been digging this series from the jump. It hasn't let me down yet. All right, guys, next up we have Spider-Man Noir, issue number 1, written by Eric Larson. He's joined by Braccardo and Rosenberg. So I'm a Spider-Man guy. I didn't really have high expectations for this. I don't really care about the show coming out, but I decided to check it out, and it's kind of what you would expect out of a Spider-Man Noir comic. You're taking place in the late 30s. It's very like, see, kind of vibes. And I kind of felt like Larson wrote this Peter Parker way different than what we see in the Spider-Verse franchise, much different than what Nick Cage does. I feel like he's a man of little words, and every time he says something, it's like some kind of deep kind of...
Sometimes I burn myself with matches just to make myself feel.
So we don't get that. He's very talkative in this issue, Peter Parker. But I do like some of the artwork, some of the spider fights. He comes through like Frank Reynolds. He just starts blasting. He uses guns. Aunt May knows that he's Spider-Man, and every chance she gets, she kind of like tries to give him superhero advice that he never asked for, her priceless advice. I did actually enjoy it at the end of the day, but I don't know how far I'm going to go with Spider-Man Noir. All right, guys, so next up we have the Ghost Rider Spirits of Violence, issue 1. This is coming out of the most recent Ghost Rider stuff they've been doing, and they've introduced a new spirit of violence in the sister of Danny Ketch. So Danny Ketch has the spirit of vengeance. So does Johnny Blaze. You have Robbie Reyes, who's just kind of mentioned here. There's a lot of spirits of vengeances, and there is a vengeance. And now you have spirits of violence. First of all, amazing cover by Kunka, like a painted kind of style. Love that. This is written by Perzada, Davidson, and Dahlhaus. Now, the problem with this book is that I really wasn't digging the art, man. This was not for me. I think, unfortunately, I'm going to give this pick of the week as far as like the weakest book that I read all the way through. There's 2 books in here that I didn't even finish. So those are really the weakest ones. But out of the ones I read, I didn't like this macabre ragtag group of ghouls that are escaping the spirit world and going into the real world. And they're kind of what the Ghost Riders need to fight. I don't know, I just wasn't digging it, man. I wasn't digging it at all. I like the idea of Danny Ketch's sister being the spirit of violence, and it chose her as a host because it knows that Danny will pull punches towards his sister. We got a cool flashback of them in their younger years and kind of how she looked out for him, and it ties in later. But I just wasn't digging it, man. And I'm a Ghost Rider fan. New York Comic Con is around the corner, and after just a few years, a new Ninja Funk chapter is finally being released after the cliffhanger to the first arc. Will Ninja Funk save Bella Bay from bad music, or will things go from bad to worse in Ninja Funk Volume 2? There are a ton of amazing covers available from artists like David Mack, Alessandro Micelli, Aaron Bartling, Tylem Kirkham, Natalie Sanders, Humam Quattab, Kreese Lee, Ivan Tao, Ryan Kincaid, Sajad Shah, Ali Garza, Xander, and Alex Regal, just to name a few. Make sure to check out for them over at That Spider-Man booth on Whatnot, and see you guys at New York Comic Con. Another #1 from Marvel is the return of the White Tiger. So White Tiger Reborn by Older, Pelayo, Abdias, Hidalgo Costa, and Sanchez Almara. So I kind of have a soft spot for this character. When my kids were young, they loved the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, and this was the White Tiger that was like a prominent character in that series. So I read this one, and it gives nods to her uncle, who was the original White Tiger, who we saw in Daredevil Born Again. So it was kind of cool to see all that, and the way that it was written, it felt very down to earth. It's very, I'm in the Bronx, I'm at the bodega. They kind of lay that on a little thick, and I wonder how authentic that really is, because reading it, it kind of comes off a little bit forced. It's a little bit much, like, we get it, she's in New York City. But otherwise, I thought it read pretty well. I don't know how much more I want to read of the White Tiger Reborn, but it was pretty cool to see what happens at the end here. I don't want to give it away because it's kind of a spoiler, but the ending was actually pretty good, and I did like it a little bit, but I don't know. The art was good, as you can see as well. All right, the last one that I read digitally is the X-Men Age of Revelation Overture. This one is by GemMintC with art by Ryan Stegman. You got Mayer and Delgado on here. And I was kind of looking forward to this. I mean, there's a ton of new X-Men books that I'm looking forward to. This Age of Revelation thing, and then you have the Age of Apocalypse thing coming on. But this Age of Revelation is 10 years in the future. It's kind of like the opposite of the Days of Future Past movie. They take a couple of mutants and they transport their consciousness 10 years into the future. So you got Cyclops got pulled 10 years into the future along with Beast. In this future, you have the X-Men led by Magneto, and then you have Glob there in the middle, who's kind of like an assassin hunting down these traitors, Psylocke being one of them. What was even going on in this? So I guess you really need to be following what's going on in the current X-Men stuff to understand what's going on here. And I gotta say, man, I'm a huge fan of Ryan Stegman. Love his stuff with Venom. A lot of his stuff is great. I don't like what he does with the X-Men books, man. I don't like the grit that he gives to them. It just doesn't it doesn't feel like X-Men to me, right? Like X-Men to me is like flashy, colorful, and this is like very grimy and dingy and dull. And I do like this kind of feathered cape that Magneto's wearing for whatever reason. So yeah, they pull Cyclops and they pull Beast into the future, the Age of Revelation. Humanity has fallen, and it's at the fault of the mutants. So Cyclops comes to, and he's like, okay, who did it? And Magneto's like, bro, we did it. So what else can I even talk about this one? It kind of ties into stuff with Arakko, which is Mars, where Apocalypse is. So you kind of had to have read Ten of Swords or whatever that was from the Krakoa era. I wasn't into it, man. It was a lot going on, and none of it was really captivating, and none of it hooked me. And there were 2 books that I started to read that I really couldn't get through. This one being an X-Men one-shot called The Undertow. There's 2 stories, one by Packendale, one by Tim Seeley. I couldn't even get through it, man. I couldn't care less about the characters or those stories. I thought it was very boring. And then there was another indie one. Like, I really liked Author Immortal, so I thought I'd give this Good Devils a try. This is by Dragata, the Dragata brothers. This just wasn't for me. I don't know what's going on. There's like 10 different art styles in the book. First art style looks like a manga, but it looks unfinished. It looks like they're turned in on what you see original art on with like notes on the top and shit. I don't know, man. I didn't get it. I didn't read it all. It wasn't for me. All right, now onto the physical copies. Jeez, do you see why I'm late with this video? This was an incredible issue. the Ultimate Wolverine issue 10 by Chris Condon, Linz, and Valenza. I don't think I've talked about this version of Sabretooth yet. I really like this version of Sabretooth in the Ultimate Universe. He almost reminds me like a John Goodman type character, or like the neighbor from Home Improvement on the other side of the fence. He's like this big, burly, nice guy who wants to help Wolverine. He's friends with Wolverine. But right as he tries to plan his escape, he wants to prevent mutants from dying. So he wants to take these 2 mutants with him. And right as he tries to escape, the Russians attack with Omega Red. And you have this Ultimate Wolverine versus Ultimate Omega Red. Wolverine has the Muramasa blade given to him by Sabretooth, as you can see here. And it was just an incredible scene, incredible ending, which I don't want to spoil. Pick of the week runner-up for that one for sure. All right, then we're on to Amazing Spider-Man with issue 13. This is by Joe Kelly with Pepe Larraz, incredible artwork by Larraz, Garcia, and Arsene Yeaga. So this is an obligatory Imperial tie-in, but it actually doesn't really feel like a tie-in. I don't even know how it ties in, except for the fact that Peter Parker got knocked into next week, right? Hellgate knocked him light years away, so he ends up being kind of stuck out here, and he's being trained by this alien. He finds out that this alien has these kind of live captives that he's experimenting on, and Peter isn't having it. Guardians of the Galaxy show up. So I guess whatever's going on in Imperial that kind of involves the Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't feel like it was an Imperial tie-in, though. This run is kind of fun because it reminds me of like an Al Ewing Rom V thing, like what they did with Venom. Like you've got the Earthbound stuff going on with... This is not a spoiler alert. We learned this issues ago. Norman Osborn parading around as Spider-Man, Ben Reilly parading around as Peter Parker, and then you have what's going on with the real Peter Parker out here in outer space. He's got this new techno kind of suit from the said alien that was training him, which acts kind of like a techno symbiote. I did like it. I did like this story, this issue. I like the whole story overall. I'm going to keep reading it. All right, guys. So Venom, issue 250, legacy numbering, and this is by Al Ewing with a backup story by Charles Soule, Gomez, Dodson, Todd Knock, D'Armata, and Rosenberg. So Knoll is coming back. This is the first story that I actually read with Mary Jane as Venom. And as stupid as that sounds, it really is not that stupid, because Mary Jane's got a long history with Venom, dating back to his first appearance when he traumatizes her. And the way that the host talks with the symbiote, inner monologue and whatever, it's kind of interesting to see Mary Jane talk with the Venom symbiote and their interactions. He's so close, or has been so close, with Peter, with Eddie, and she was in the mix during all that as well. Now, the whole story pretty much surrounds this Skrull character. He's a power Skrull, not to be confused with Super Skrull. And I gotta be honest, I don't give a shit about the Skrulls or the Kree or any of that. I can't stand all that stuff. It's just this cannon fodder characters that don't mean anything. But the big premise here is that Null is captured, but his symbiotes are on the loose. They're infiltrating all these areas, these Krees, warriors, and these Skrulls. And Null is being held captive by somebody. We find out who that is, which is actually a pretty cool reveal. And it looks like they're banking on the return of Null. Then the backup story, the Charles Soule story, just takes place after Venom Lethal Protector 4. It's in between 4 and 5, after Eddie Brock loses this symbiote for the very first time. So it's kind of an interesting short story on what that feels like to him. I guess it kind of ties in with the fact that Eddie Brock doesn't have the Venom symbiote now. He's got the Carnage symbiote. So I didn't hate it. I'll read issue 251. I guess they're going to continue with the legacy numbering, so I'll stick around with it. I guess it's a pretty good jumping on point. Now, before we jump into the DC books, I did forget to get Adventures of Superman House of L issue 2. I really liked issue 1, and I just forgot to get it, so I'll have to catch up on that. All right, guys, DC time, Absolute Green Lantern. We're on issue 7. This is by Al Ewing, Howard, Rosmo, and Azpiazu. Man, they dropped a ton of lore on us with this one. If you're not familiar with Green Lantern lore, you're going to be a little bit confused here, because they really introduce a couple of things from lore, like the planet Mogo, which is like this black star planet. I want to say Mogo was a Green Lantern in the original series. These other alien races looking like something straight out of Invincible, right? With the Cyclops guy. You can see the guy in the front. I was never a huge Green Lantern guy. They do introduce Kilowog here, and it is not the Kilowog that we know and love. I don't even want to show these panels because of spoilers. But it did have some trippy art, a ton of lore drop, like I said. It's probably my least favorite absolute title so far. I could see myself dropping it. It's interesting. We do get another, I don't want to even give this away. A ton of Green Lantern characters are introduced in this book, ones that we know and love, but they're much different than the ones that we know and love, and it's trippy, it's Al Ewing, it's out there. That's Green Lantern. All right, then we're on to Absolute Superman issue 12. This one is by Jason Aaron. He's joined by Sandoval and Areola. See Superman with Ra's al Ghul in the back. He got out. He escaped from the Lazarus Corporation. He was being tortured in his mind, forced to kill so that he can finally switch sides and become a pawn of Ra's al Ghul. So what we get here is a lot of story with Kal-El and Sol. Sol is the AI artificial intelligence that was the rocket that he came in here. It's also his cape. It's also his like onboard AI, which I guess I just said. So after his escape from the Lazarus Corporation, it goes back and shows us more of Kal-El, his first time on Earth, and him adapting to the planet and to the people, creating his Fortress of Solitude, using Sol for the first time, which is like a red version of the fortress. And then catching up to Smallville, where Lois Lane, she's finally woke. She's no longer following the orders of Ra's al Ghul and the Lazarus Corporation. Her father has died. She's in this diner in Smallville looking for Clark, looking for Kal-El, and she finds him. I kind of like how they name Sol-El in this. A lot of great back and forth between Sol and Clark or Kal, or whatever you want to call it, whatever his name is. Great issue. Love this run. All right, guys, I really wanted to give this pick of the week, but I kind of felt like it's a little cliche. Like, it's not always going to be a number one. Pick of the week doesn't always have to be a number one issue, but this was a great issue, man. Absolute Evil, issue 1 by Al Ewing, Camuncoli, Nezzi, and Ferraro Jr. This is basically the formation of the absolute world of the Justice League. But everything in the absolute world is kind of backwards, so use your imagination on that. You have these heads of families, including Ra's al Ghul, including the Man Who Never Laughs, and they're coming up with a plan because all of these metahumans are showing up, man. And really what triggered it and what I liked about this was the appearance of Wonder Woman. So if you remember in the pages of Absolute Wonder Woman, she makes this whole big scene fighting this kaiju. She's on camera. The news is there. She ends up taking over and like directing soldiers. And that's kind of like a problem for this absolute cabal of villains, the villains that kind of run the world, the rich, the evil. I love how it ties in with everything that's been introduced so far, stuff with Brainiac, stuff that's going on in different absolute titles. And the opening here and what they do with that, it's like a jaw-dropping moment, man. Great issue. Almost pick of the week. But I gots to give pick of the week to Batman issue 2 by Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez. I think this is like the best Jorge Jimenez art that I've ever seen. And he's been doing Batman for years, man. I feel like he was on the title back in the Tom King and the Chip Zdarsky years ago. He did the cover and he does the interior. So not only, first of all, this cover is incredible, bro. I love the art on this cover. And the fact that the interiors match the cover is just so awesome to me. So in this world, I mean, it's canon. You know, Alfred is still gone. You have Batman showing, this is actually showing him growing up with Tim Drake and Damian Wayne. I say him growing up, but really a younger Tim Drake learning how to drive, wanting to drive the Batmobile, the Batmo, but gives him some clunker kind of truck, and Damian Wayne kind of interfering on the teaching the whole time. And then to present times, fighting criminals in the street, but they don't have the backing of the police. So they're out there, they got to watch their back to the criminals, to the villains, and to the police. And you have this trigger-happy cop, gets his partner killed, Batman gets blasted in the back of his head by a shotgun. It's just a very grounded Batman story. You're in a situation where it's very hard for them to operate, and the art is just totally incredible, man. I loved everything about this book. I'm going to continue reading this Batman ongoing series, obviously. Let me know what you thought about this week's comics, and leave me a like on the video if you dug it. I appreciate you watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.